December 4th, 1925. Porto, Portugal, 12:18 p.m. As a cold open to this crisis, the air is thick with Atlantic moisture and the smell of roasted chestnuts. Inside the vault of the Pinto da Cunha cambist firm, a man sits at a heavy oak desk. His name is João Teixeira Direito. He is an inspector for the Bank of Portugal, and right now, his hands are trembling. The room is silent, save for the rhythmic snap, snap, snap of paper. Direito is staring at 2 stacks of money, banknotes, specifically the 500 escudo note. It is a beautiful piece of craftsmanship, bearing the stern, bearded face of the great explorer Vasco da Gama. For weeks, rumors have whispered through the cobbled streets of Lisbon and Porto, rumors of a flood of dark money, an impossible boom in a country suffocating from post-war debt. Direito has been sent here to find counterfeit bills. He has examined thousands. He has rubbed the paper between his thumbs, checked the watermarks, scrutinized the intricate engravings. The ink is flawless. The paper is perfect. But as he places 2 notes side by side under the harsh glare of a brass desk lamp, the illusion shatters. He looks at the serial number on the note in his left hand, UK02201. He looks at the serial number on the note in his right hand, UK02201. 2 identical numbers, 2 identical notes, both absolutely undeniably materially genuine. A cold sweat breaks across the inspector's neck. This is not the work of a back-alley counterfeiter. This is a tear in the fabric of reality. Money is a shared hallucination. It is a collective agreement that a piece of printed paper buys a loaf of bread, a house, a human life. It has no intrinsic value. It only exists because people believe in the performance. But what happens when one man learns how to hack the hallucination? What happens when a single actor rewrites the script and forces the government to print his own fake money? There are no ski masks, no getaway cars, no vaults blown open with dynamite. It is the story of a bankrupt undertaker's son who prints 1% of his nation's GDP, buys a palace, orchestrates an economic boom, and single-handedly triggers the collapse of a democratic republic. 1896, Lisbon. To understand the context of the illusion, one must first examine the architect. The Kingdom of Portugal is slowly suffocating under the weight of its fading empire. Artur Alves dos Reis is born into a modest family. His father is an undertaker, a man who buries the dead, until the debts bury him. The father goes bankrupt, declared insolvent. Young Artur watches the humiliation. He feels the sting of poverty. He learns early that society is a caste system, and the only ladder up is made of paper. Artur is intelligent, ambitious. He possesses a silver tongue and an innate understanding of human vanity. He enrolls in engineering studies, but the academic route is too slow. At age 19, he abandons his degree to marry Maria Luisa Jacobetti de Azevedo, a woman of higher social standing. Her family looks down on him. They see a peasant, a failure's son. Reis decides to rewrite his own origin story. He needs to escape. He looks to the horizon, Angola, the crown jewel of the Portuguese colonies, a frontier of untamed wealth. But a man does not simply walk into the colonial administration without credentials. So, Reis creates them. He sits at a desk, procures official parchment, and drafts a diploma. He grants himself a degree from the Polytechnic School of Engineering of Oxford University, an institution that does not exist. The diploma certifies him as an expert in civil engineering, metallurgy, paleography, pure mathematics, and physics. He takes this absurd document to a public notary. He understands a fundamental flaw in the bureaucratic mind. Officials do not verify facts. They verify stamps. The notary, lazy and trusting, blindly applies the official seal. The forgery is complete. The hallucination begins. 1916. Reis arrives in Angola. Armed with a fake diploma and boundless audacity, he rises through the colonial ranks with meteoric speed. By his mid-20s, the high school dropout is the director of the Angolan railways. He controls the arteries of a nation, but a regular salary is not enough. Reis wants capital. 1922. He returns to Lisbon and sets his sights on Ambaca, a wealthy Angolan railway company. He initiates a hostile takeover using a check drawn on a New York bank for $100,000. The check, completely worthless, bouncing on empty air. But before the check can clear the transatlantic telegraph lines, Reis uses his newly acquired status as majority shareholder to raid the Ambaca corporate treasury. He uses the company's real money to cover his fake check. It is a masterpiece of circular logic. Buy the bank with fake money, use the bank's real money to pay for the fake money. But he is reckless. He pushes too far. He attempts to buy the Angola mining company using the same tactic. The board catches on. The authorities are alerted. July 1924. Oporto. The police close in. Reis is arrested for fraud and embezzlement. He is thrown into a damp stone cell. He will spend 54 days in this cage. Most men would break. Most men would stare at the iron bars and repent. Not Artur Alves dos Reis. He sits in the darkness, listening to the drip of water, and he analyzes his failure. He realizes his mistake was thinking too small. He was stealing money that already belonged to someone else. Stealing leaves a victim. Stealing leaves an empty vault. What if, instead of stealing wealth, he simply creates it? Reis studies the mechanics of the Portuguese economy. The First Republic is a geopolitical disaster. Between 1910 and 1926, the country suffers through over 40 different governments. Chaos reigns. Inflation runs rampant. The institutions are decaying. Reis zeroes in on the central pillar of the economy, the Bank of Portugal. He discovers a shocking vulnerability. The Bank of Portugal is not a fully public institution. It is partly private, and more importantly, it does not possess the technology to print its own banknotes. It outsources the printing to elite, highly secure engraving firms in London and Germany. The bank's internal record-keeping is notoriously lax. The governors operate in secrecy, often authorizing emergency print runs to keep the failing state afloat. Reis smiles in the dark. He does not need to build a printing press. He does not need to hire master engravers. He does not need to buy specialized ink or watermarked paper. He just needs to write a letter. August 1924. He is released on a technicality. He steps out into the bright Iberian sun to act as the catalyst for the choreography of the greatest financial illusion in history. The operation begins in the shadows of Lisbon. Reis cannot act alone. He needs diplomats. He needs businessmen. He needs men of apparent, unimpeachable character to serve as his emissaries. He recruits a trio of sophisticated operators. The first is José Bandeira, a petty criminal with a taste for the high life, but more importantly, the brother of the Portuguese ambassador to the Netherlands. Bandeira brings diplomatic immunity and untouchable family connections. The second is Karel Marang van Isselveer, a suave, highly connected Dutch merchant holding a Liberian diplomatic passport, making him the perfect frontman. The third is Adolf Hennies, a German spy, currency speculator, and shadowy wartime profiteer, serving as the logistical mastermind. Reis gathers them. He feeds them a lie wrapped in patriotism. He tells them he has been selected by the governor of the Bank of Portugal, Inocencio Camacho Rodrigues, to lead a highly classified syndicate. The mission? To secretly print 100 million escudos to fund a massive development loan for the struggling colony of Angola. Because the political climate is volatile, the operation must bypass Parliament. It must be absolutely, completely off the books. The accomplices swallow the bait, or perhaps they simply do not care to look too closely at the hook. Reis must manufacture the mandate. Late autumn, 1924. Reis sits in his study. He is a draftsman of deception. He acquires French-made stationery, the exact weight and texture used by the Bank of Portugal. He uses a pantograph, a mechanical tracing instrument, to perfectly replicate the signatures of Governor Camacho Rodrigues and the deputy governor. He drafts a sprawling, multi-page contract authorizing the printing of 200,000 banknotes of 500 escudo denomination, bearing the image of Vasco da Gama. To bypass internal security, the contract explicitly states that these notes will be overprinted with the word Angola upon arrival, meaning they can share the exact same serial numbers as notes already circulating in mainland Portugal. This is the stroke of dark genius. Reis is not inventing new serial numbers. He is duplicating existing ones. If anyone checks the ledger, the numbers are perfectly valid. He binds the documents with sealing wax. He has the signatures notarized by a complacent clerk. He sends the documents to the British, French, and German consulates in Lisbon to have the notary's signature authenticated. The illusion is layered. The consulates are not authenticating the contract. They are only authenticating the notary. But to the outside world, the document now bears the heavy, undeniable weight of international statecraft. December 4th, 1924. The stage shifts to London. Karel Marang steps out of a cab into the damp London fog. He enters the grand, imposing offices of Waterlow and Sons Limited. They are the apex of global currency printing. They print the legal tender for dozens of nations. Marang is ushered into the mahogany-paneled office of Sir William Waterloo himself. Marang plays his role flawlessly. He presents the forged credentials. He speaks in hushed conspiratorial tones. He explains the desperate plight of the Angolan colony. He presents the forged contract from the Bank of Portugal, authorizing Waterloo and Sons to print 200,000 Vasco da Gama 500 escudo notes. Sir William Waterloo looks at the seals. He looks at the notarizations. He looks at the authentic consular stamps. The master printer does not pick up the telephone and call Lisbon to verify the secret multi-million-pound state contract. He wants the commission. The greed of commerce supersedes the rigor of security. Sir William agrees. He accepts the contract. He takes the original authentic printing plates for the Portuguese currency out of the Waterloo vault. The presses begin to roll. February 1925. The first shipment of money is ready. This is not counterfeit money. It is real money, printed on real paper, with real ink, by the real manufacturer. It is a genuine hallucination, birthed from a lie. But there is a physical problem. The ink is fresh. The paper is crisp. If you dump millions of freshly printed escudos into the economy, bearing serial numbers from years ago, the telltale smell of fresh ink will give away the game. Reis anticipates this. He orchestrates a forensic laundering process. When the notes arrive in Portugal, smuggled across borders by José Bandeira, using diplomatic pouches immune to customs inspections, Reis takes possession. He brings them into a secure room. He prepares a chemical bath, diluted acid, camphor, and lemon juice. He washes the banknotes in the lemon juice mixture. The acid strips away the sharp scent of the industrial printing press. It artificially ages the paper, making it look circulated, soft, handled by 100 merchants. The chemical reaction slightly alters the color of the notes, giving them a faint, pale pink hue. The men in the syndicate look at the drying money. They smile. They call them camarões, shrimp. The shrimp are ready for the ocean. Reis takes 25% of the cut. The rest is divided among the conspirators. They do not trickle the money into the economy. They open the floodgates. Freelance currency dealers, known as zangões, are deployed across the streets of Lisbon and Porto. They buy gold. They buy British pounds. They buy foreign exchange. The Portuguese economy, starved for capital, suddenly finds itself drowning in it. The catalyst is complete. The poison is in the bloodstream. Now, the body begins to react. Spring 1925. Lisbon is transforming as the investigation and fallout approach. Artur Alves dos Reis is no longer a disgraced former railway director. He is a titan. He is a financial demigod. By laundering 100 million escudos, equivalent to roughly 1% of Portugal's entire nominal GDP, Reis unilaterally alters the macroeconomic reality of a sovereign nation. The influx of capital creates an artificial boom. Businesses secure loans. Construction spikes. The exchange rate of the dying Portuguese escudo actually begins to stabilize against the British pound. The public, battered by years of austerity, cheers the sudden economic miracle. They do not know they are dancing on a theater stage built of lemon-scented paper. Reis is living like a monarch. He buys a fleet of taxis. He purchases sprawling agricultural estates. He showers his wife in diamonds. He purchases the Palacio do Menino de Ouro, the Palace of the Golden Boy, a magnificent architectural marvel in the heart of Lisbon, and makes it his personal residence. But Reis is a creature of cold logic. He knows the sheer volume of 500 escudo notes flooding the market will eventually trigger algorithmic alarms within the central bank. The zangões on the street are not enough. He needs an institutional washing machine. June 1925. Reis takes his fake money and buys a real bank. He founds the Banco de Angola in Metrópole. He uses his massive illicit reserves to bribe politicians and grease the wheels of the chaotic First Republic bureaucracy to secure his banking charter. The doors open. The bank sets up branches in Lisbon and Porto. The business model is spectacular. The Banco de Angola e Metrópole offers loans at absurdly low interest rates. Furthermore, they do not actively seek deposits. Why would they? The vault is already bursting with Waterloo's finest shrimp. But even with his own bank, Reis knows the clock is ticking. The Bank of Portugal will eventually audit the money supply. So, Reis devises a contingency plan of breathtaking arrogance. If the Bank of Portugal discovers the fraud, they will prosecute him. To stop a central bank from prosecuting him, he decides to buy the central bank. Reis begins to aggressively purchase shares in the Bank of Portugal. The bank is governed by shareholders. To achieve a controlling interest, to become the dictator of the boardroom, Reis calculates he needs 45,000 shares. Through a network of proxies, shell companies, and the bottomless wealth of his printing press, Reis initiates a hostile shadow takeover of the sovereign monetary authority. By the end of summer, he controls 7,000 shares. By November, he holds 10,000. He is closing in. If he buys the bank, he can erase the ledger. He can validate the fake notes. He can bury the hallucination in the official archives forever. November 23rd, 1925. The friction of reality begins to heat up. A bank that lends money without taking deposits defies the laws of financial physics. In the newsrooms of Lisbon, the journalists of O Século, the nation's most prominent daily newspaper, are watching. They assign reporters to dig into the Banco de Angola e Metrópole. They look at the board of directors. They see Artur Alves dos Reis, a man who, just 1 year ago, was sitting in a Porto jail cell for check fraud. Now he is buying palaces and manipulating the national stock exchange. The journalists do not suspect a massive counterfeiting ring. The notes are too perfect. Instead, they suspect geopolitical espionage. The prevailing theory is that Adolf Hennies, the German spy, is using German capital to artificially inflate Reis's bank in a long-con plot to economically annex the colony of Angola for the Weimar Republic. O Século begins publishing probing articles, asking aggressive questions about the opaque financing of Reis's empire. Panic ripples through the syndicate. Bandera is sweating. Hennies prepares an exit strategy. The Bank of Portugal, spurred by the media frenzy, initiates an investigation. They deploy Inspector João Teixeira Direito to Porto. December 4th, 1925. Direito sits in the Pinto da Cunha cambist firm. He looks at the two notes, 1K02201, the duplicate serial numbers, the fatal flaw. Reis had assumed the notes would scatter into the wind. He underestimated the density of the concentration. When you pump 200,000 identical notes into a small geographic economy, statistical probability dictates that eventually 2 identical notes will end up in the same teller's drawer. The Bank of Portugal acts with terrifying speed. Orders are wired to every bank branch in the country. Sort all 500 escudo notes by serial number. Within hours, vaults across the nation yield hundreds of duplicates. The Bank of Portugal sends a frantic telegram to London. They contact Waterloo and Sons. Sir William Waterloo replies, confirming he printed the notes on the authorized orders of Governor Camacho Rodriguez. The Bank of Portugal realizes the horrific truth. The call is coming from inside the house. December 5th, 1925. O Século drops the hammer. The front page headline screams, "A burla revelada," the fraud revealed. The country is in crisis. Warrants are issued. Police mobilize. December 6th, 1925. Reis is at sea. He is aboard the German steamship Adolf Woermann, returning from a triumphant victory tour of his properties in Angola. He is 28 years old. He is a king. The ship docks. The gangway lowers. Officers of the Portuguese police are waiting. They swarm the deck. Adolf Hennies, standing next to Reis, senses the trap. He blends into the crowd. He slips away, vanishing into the European underground, escaping to Germany with his wealth. Reis does not run. He stands tall. He lets the steel cuffs click around his wrists. The true devastation, the catastrophic unraveling of a nation, has only just begun. December 7th, 1925. Reaching the conclusion of the immediate crisis, the investigation tears the country apart. The government orders the immediate withdrawal of all 500 escudo Vasco da Gama notes from circulation. Citizens have 20 days to surrender their cash. Absolute panic grips the streets. Crowds storm the banks. Tens of thousands of innocent citizens realize their life savings, their wages, their business capital. It is all built on the lemon-scented hallucination. 115,000 fake notes are seized. The Portuguese escudo collapses on the international market. Artur Alves dos Reis is thrown back into a stone cell. But Reis is a man who fights with paper. From inside solitary confinement, he secures smuggled documents. He engineers a brilliant, psychopathic defense strategy. He claims he is innocent. He claims he was a mere pawn, acting on the secret, legitimate orders of the governor of the Bank of Portugal. He forges new documents inside his jail cell to implicate the very men prosecuting him. And the terrifying part? The judges believe him. The public already despises the corrupt political elite. It is entirely plausible to the Portuguese people that the central bankers were orchestrating a massive embezzlement scheme. The sheer quality of Reis's forgeries paralyzes the judicial system. The trial is delayed for 5 agonizing years. For 5 years, the Portuguese First Republic rots from the inside out. The Alves dos Reis scandal is the fatal blow to public trust. The people look at the politicians, the bankers, the institutions, and see only a theater of thieves. They crave order. They crave stability. They crave a strong man. May 28, 1926. The military marches on Lisbon. The Democratic Republic is overthrown. The Ditadura Nacional is established, paving the way for Antonio de Oliveira Salazar to rise to power. Salazar implements the Estado Novo, an iron-fisted authoritarian dictatorship that will plunge Portugal into darkness for the next 48 years. One man with a pantograph and a fake diploma destroyed a democracy. In London, the legal warfare rages. The Bank of Portugal sues Waterloo and Sons in the High Court for negligence. The case reaches the House of Lords. It becomes the most complex and expensive trial in British legal history. 1932. Waterloo is ordered to pay an astronomical £610,392 in damages. The prestigious printing firm is financially broken, its reputation ruined. Sir William Waterloo dies in disgrace. As for the other actors, Karel Marang is tried in the Netherlands. He serves 11 months, moves to France, buys an electrical company, and dies an incredibly wealthy, respected citizen in Cannes. José Bandeira serves 15 years and dies in poverty in 1957. Adolf Hennies loses his fortune to bad investments and dies a broken man. May 1930. The gavel finally falls. Artur Alves dos Reis is found guilty and sentenced to 20 years in prison. He spends his prime behind bars. The man who once held the economy of an empire in his hands now holds nothing but a Bible. He converts to Protestantism. He preaches to the other inmates. May 1945, he is released. The world has moved on. The Second World War is ending. The streets of Lisbon are patrolled by Salazar's secret police. A bank cautiously offers Reis a job as a clerk. He refuses. He tries a few minor swindles in the coffee trade, but the fire is gone. The magic has faded. July 9th, 1955. Artur Virgilio Alves dos Reis suffers a massive heart attack and dies in absolute poverty, buried in the Alto de São João cemetery. The mechanics of the crime reveal that Reis did not steal gold from a vault. He did not point a gun at a teller. He simply understood the fundamental nature of our reality. He understood that the modern world is not built on metal or stone or intrinsic worth. It is built on trust. It is a fragile psychological agreement, a stamp on a document, a signature on a contract, a face printed on a piece of paper. If you can mimic the symbols of authority, the world will bend to your will. The 1925 Portuguese banknote crisis remains a haunting mirror. It asks a terrifying question. When the money is real, but the authority is fake, what exactly is the difference? The hallucination holds.